Most people roll their eyes the moment supplements come up, and honestly, that reaction makes sense. The supplement world is full of bold promises backed by weak evidence, but every once in a while, something genuinely surprising shows up in high-quality research. Today is one of those moments because we're talking about a supplement that has been tested in a large randomized controlled trial and shown measurable protection against precancerous growth in the colon, not in mice, not in test tubes. In humans, and the most shocking part isn't even the first study, it's what happened years after people stopped taking it. The compound is berberine, a naturally occurring molecule extracted from plants like barberry. It's been studied for years for blood sugar control and metabolic health, but its role in cancer prevention stayed relatively quiet. That changed when researchers ran a rigorous randomized controlled trial involving nearly 1,000 participants. These individuals all had a history of colorectal adenomas, which are abnormal growths in the colon that are not cancer yet, but significantly raise the risk of developing it later. Participants were randomly assigned to one of two groups. One group took berberine in capsule form twice a day, while the other took an identical-looking placebo. Neither the participants nor the researchers knew who was taking what during the trial. Both groups followed this protocol for 2 full years, and the researchers tracked one main outcome: how many people developed new adenomas during that time. When the data were analyzed, the difference was clear. The group taking berberine developed fewer precancerous growths than the placebo group. Statistically, this translated into about a 23% reduction in overall risk. That's not a vague trend or a weak signal. That's a meaningful reduction observed in a controlled human trial. In plain terms, berberine lowered the likelihood that these dangerous growths would appear in the first place. But the findings didn't stop at simple numbers. Not all adenomas are equal. Some are considered advanced, meaning they're larger, more structurally abnormal, and more likely to progress toward cancer. When researchers looked specifically at these advanced adenomas, berberine showed an even stronger effect. The risk of developing advanced lesions was reduced by close to 50%. Even accounting for statistical uncertainty, that's a striking result. Quick check-in before we go further. Were you expecting a supplement to show numbers like that in a randomized trial? If this already caught your attention, pause for a second, tap like, subscribe, and follow BioOptimize Vision. It helps more evidence-based health content like this reach people who actually care about facts over hype. Now, how does berberine actually do this? It's not magic, and it's not some sci-fi scenario where a pill hunts down cancer cells. The proposed mechanisms are grounded in cellular biology. Inside colon cells, there are signaling pathways that control growth and division. Some of these pathways, when overactive, promote tumor formation. Berberine appears to interfere with several of these cancer-promoting signals, effectively slowing down or blocking processes that allow abnormal cells to grow unchecked. There's also an indirect pathway that's just as important. Berberine interacts with the gut microbiome. Your colon is home to trillions of bacteria, and the balance of those microbes influences inflammation, metabolism, and cancer risk. Evidence suggests berberine alters the gut environment in a way that's less favorable for colorectal cancer development. So you get a two-pronged effect: direct influence on cell signaling and indirect effects through microbial changes. At this point, the results are already impressive. But this is where the story takes a turn that almost nobody saw coming. Years after the original trial ended, researchers conducted a follow-up study published in the journal Cell Reports Medicine. They reevaluated many of the same participants, this time looking at what happened over the long term. Here's the key detail. After the first 2 years, participants stopped taking berberine. No continued supplementation, no ongoing intervention. Then researchers tracked adenoma recurrence for another 6 years. When the results came in, the risk of new adenomas was still lower in the group that had originally taken berberine. Year after year, the data consistently showed reduced recurrence compared to placebo. And remember, these people hadn't taken berberine for years. That's the part that's genuinely remarkable. A 2-year intervention associated with reduced precancerous growth risk up to 6 years later. From a scientific standpoint, the researchers are careful with language here. They describe this as an association rather than definitive causation, because once the intervention stopped, the study was no longer randomized. Still, they adjusted for many lifestyle and health variables, and the signal remained strong. So what could explain this lasting effect? One possibility is that berberine induces longer-term changes in the gut microbiome or cellular environment that don't immediately disappear when supplementation stops. That idea fits with what we know about microbial ecosystems and long-term metabolic signaling, but it still needs further investigation. Of course, no study is perfect. There are important limitations to acknowledge. All participants were Chinese, which matters because diet strongly influences the gut microbiome. Results may differ in populations eating very different diets, whether that's Western, African, ketogenic, or plant-dominant patterns. Another limitation is that participants already had a history of adenomas. We don't yet know if the same protective effect applies to people with no prior colon abnormalities. It's also possible that individuals with an already healthy microbiome may see less benefit. If berberine works partly by correcting an unhealthy gut environment, then people starting from a better baseline might experience smaller effects. What we can say with confidence is this. In people with a history of colorectal adenomas, 600 milligrams of berberine per day, split into 2 doses, significantly reduced the number and severity of precancerous growths over 2 years, with evidence suggesting longer-term protection even after stopping. Side effects in these studies were generally mild and uncommon. Still, this is not a replacement for medical screening, colonoscopies, or professional care. It's a potential additional tool, not a cure. If you have a history of abnormal colon growth, this is something worth discussing with a qualified healthcare professional. If you don't, there's no definitive evidence yet that berberine provides the same benefit, though future studies may expand on this. The bigger takeaway is that skepticism around supplements should be selective, not absolute. Most supplements fail when tested properly. A few don't. Berberine is one of the rare cases where solid human data suggest real measurable benefit in a specific context. If you value clear, evidence-based breakdowns like this and want more content focused on real science, not trends, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow BioOptimize Vision. That support helps keep high-quality health education accessible. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.